She's got so many theories that sound so quacky when you look at them. When you go through her books, you're like, that can't possibly be true, but then you start running her formulas and you're like, oh my God, she's right. And
Now,
one
when
of the,
you, I wanted to go back and just ask you a real quick question. When you said that you knew that you would see something later on because it was, that
it
up
wasn't
until
my
it
time.
wasn't your time. Was it
Yeah.
strictly that Uranus, or were there Saturn in natal that would inhibit you to
Oh,
not?
absolutely. And that's why I go back to my rule of three that I talk about a lot because yeah, I don't look at one thing. I never look at one thing because it could be anything. It could
Yeah,
be this, that. It could be my environment. It could be my spouse. It could be my kid. How do I know it's even me? So I look at three, I want three references to tell me the same thing. Yes, I
right.
had the Uranus opposition. I also had Pluto squaring my sun. I'm like, whoa,
Now,
I mean, I
yeah.
looked at that. I mean, yeah, I was looking at, and one of my other old
So,
friends, like we said, we used to share things. I called up another astrologer named Walt, who is amazing. And I go, do you see what I see? Like, he goes, you better buckle up, honey. I mean,
yeah.
and it was bad. I mean,
Mm.
when I got basically
I
drugged to
could only
Vegas,
imagine.
you know,
Imagine.
my
Mhm.
mother started dying, my grandmother started dying, my daughter started getting sick, my husband started getting sick. I had a stroke. I mean, it was one thing after the other. And the whole time I'm going, okay, I knew this was coming. Maybe not exactly, right? But
Right,
I
but you
knew,
knew what
yeah.
that there was challenges that are ahead that were going to be doozies. And that's what I try to tell people when they want to question astrology and say, look, well, why would I want to know? Well, if you knew that you had to move in 6 months versus, a month, would you pick 6 months? I would pick six
Well,
months.
why you would want to know? I mean, here I've got all these people, like at that
At
time
least you
back
can
then.
prepare a little bit.
Well, think about it. These people we're offering me an office and a house back east to open up
Yeah,
this like psychic detective agency, and the Sci-Fi Channel wanted to televise it, and we were talking with the Warrens about films, I mean, all this stuff's going on, but I'm looking at my chart saying it's not time. So I
yeah,
pulled back. Now, if I had, it would have been here's another example. At that same exact time, Psychic Friends Network offered me $5 million. They were
mm,
starting this all night radio program. They said, like Art Bell
mhm,
at that time, they said, we're going to broadcast all night. And they said, and it's very hard to find someone that here's the problem with psychics is if you're wrong in about a week or two, people are going to start calling back in saying you're wrong.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
But at
It's
that
gonna
point, yeah, but at that point, I had been on K-Rock radio for a year, and week after week after week, people were saying, what you told me came true. What you told me came true. That is extremely rare. So
yeah.
that's why, of course, they come to me, say, we're going to give you a contract, $5 million to host this show.
Mm.
Sounds fantastic, right? But
But
I'm
when
looking at
you get
my chart, and
when
I'm looking
things
at the
start
chart and it's going,
going,
well, what turned out is, of course, it was all a scam. What
yes.
they were doing with Psychic Friends Network was selling this show to
Mhm.
the new self-help satellite network that Tony Robbins had just started. So they
Yeah,
had sold it, as a package to this network, like as a broker, basically, with me supposedly running the show. And then they
right.
turned around and basically dumped the whole thing. And when I started getting in the books, seeing they weren't paying anybody, they're going to offer me 5 million if I'm not going to get paid. Linda Georgian wasn't getting paid. All these psychics were not getting paid that were fronting for them, right? So I said, okay, you need to give me money up front if we're going to do this, or I'm not going to trust you. Not what I'm seeing. Not what I'm seeing astrologically. I'm not buying it. So they turned
You
around
you
and
would
got
have been
Miss
the fall
Cleo.
guy. Yeah.
Well, they turned around and said, okay, fine. And they
Mhm.
got Miss Cleo and went down in flames.
Yes.
And I warned him that. I said, you bring that woman in, you're going to get criminal charges passed against you. I mean,
Oh,
you keep taking people's money saying that you're going to give them lucky winning numbers, you're going to get
mm,
sued. And they
right.
did. I mean, there's a whole documentary about Miss Cleo and Psychic Friends. Now, am I glad I walked away from that? Oh,
Mm,
hell yeah, I'm glad I walked away
right.
from all
But
that,
at least
right?
you saw that there was trouble trouble.
Absolutely. When they
That's
call, there was another thing. They call me. I'd see Neptune angular. They're lying to me, you know. So it wasn't just my chart seeing all these. I'm not seeing money and prosperity coming to me. They're talking 5 million. I'm not seeing $5 million in my chart. So
right.
I know something isn't jiving here, right? You know,
Yeah.
they're talking about me on the Sci-Fi Channel in a movie. I'm not seeing this kind of notoriety. So if I'm not now, that's why I backed away because otherwise it would have been like even worse. I mean, what would I have done if I was strapped to a radio show every night doing a broadcast and my mother's dying of cancer and my grandmother's dying of cancer? Well, I mean, think about what a disaster this would have been, you
Yes.
know? So
Well,
I think,
that's one of the reasons why I just am fascinated by the astrology in itself because I mean I had very difficult transits myself. Like I had Saturn, Neptune going in my seventh house. You know, I
oh
mean just a
dear.
lot. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
like disappointments of. I mean I'm with my husband still, but I mean even like just so many relationship things, and then but Saturn came along. I had Neptune there, but Saturn came along and made me punch me in the face and made me really see it.
That's
you
brutal
know
reality is
the
Saturn. Yeah.
brutal reality. But I am Saturn, so I'm not lying to you. Every Saturday I honor Saturn because I have to, because that it's the bitch of my it's the apex. It's in the eighth house. It's the apex to my T square of my moon and my Venus. It's the apex to my yod. I mean, it's like, and I have 10th house planets and I have a Capricorn moon. I'm Saturn out.
And you
That's
know what,
who
though? You're bringing
I
up a very
am.
good point. Let me tell you what I
Oh,
mean by a good point is that by knowing ahead of time that you've got something coming. Did I lose you? Am I still here?
no, no.
Okay.
Yes, I hear you.
Okay.
I want to hear what you have to
I'll
say.
give you an example. Let me give you an example. People say, well, what's the point of knowing? Well, there is a lot you can change. I've learned there's some things you can't. That's a different story. But on the things you can, here's a good example. I get these curious things where I just study people for months on end. And I one time connected up with the addiction community and I started charting addicts, and I was able to predict when they'd get clean and when they were off the deep end. I was able to predict relapse and using and all that, as well as their sobriety. Now, what I found interesting about that is that they were actually pretty identical transits as well as the progressions. As I'm looking
Mhm.
at it, and what I began to realize is if you look at the very core of, say, AA, they get sober by what? Focusing on helping another alcoholic. So
Exactly.
what they're doing is they're
You're in my life.
translating the energy. It's still the same energy, but
Mhm.
it's translated into a different way.
Yes.
And one of the reasons why I started doing this, I'm like saying, okay, I need to start recording classes. I need to start gearing up for podcasts. Why? Because I'm looking at my chart. I've got a lot of stuff going on with Neptune right now. And Neptune
Mhm.
can make you or break you. Now, for
It
this,
almost
Neptune's
broke
great.
me, buddy.
If you're going to be a psychic, if you're going to be helping people spiritually, fantastic. But the
Mhm.
other
Mhm.
possibility, is that I could wind up very sick. I
Yeah.
could be pumped full of medication. You know what I mean? There's some other negatives with
Oh,
Neptune, right?
there was a time when I was drinking
Then
pretty
you
good.
know what I mean. You know?
Oh yeah. But when that Saturn came, just when Saturn entered Pisces,
Mm-hmm.
2.5 it was like this smack in the face of, okay, listen, what are you going to do? Are you going to continue to take this out on you?
But you hit on it. A lot of people get sober. A
But
lot of
thank
people I found
God
get sober with
I
Saturn.
saw that.
And you're right, Saturn could be negative, but in that case,
No,
it's not
Saturn's
because
been
getting you
my
into
friend.
reality is what you need to come back to center, right?
Yes.
So this is where
Saturn is a
people,
bitch. However, I
it
have to
can be
say,
good.
I wouldn't be this, the strength of me now would never have come had I not go through that. I
Right.
mean, that's real. And I tell everybody that who's having a Saturn transit, because Saturn was opposite my Pluto. I have Virgo rising with Pluto, Uranus on the ascendant. Am, it was coming at me. I had
Exactly.
the eclipses hit that. Remember that?
That'll do it too. And
And
that's
it
why
was
I've learned
like
that if you
bump, bump,
if you
bump,
don't work a
bump.
program, you're going to
And
continue
I
to
didn't go to
use.
AA or anything like that. I'm not.
But whatever it is you're doing, you had to get
It
real,
was like,
right?
yeah, I literally had Saturn made me see that that okay, for one, either you're going to kill yourself, basically,
Mhm.
because you want to. No, I didn't know. I know I'm not ready to die yet. I don't know if I'll make it past this Uranus transit late Gemini, but I'm okay with that. Take me out of this fucking time. You gotta laugh about it. You know what I mean? What are you gonna do?
But you know, you tipped off another subject we should cover though. Actually, because somebody came into me.
Like,
No,
hey,
you
I
tip
lived
up
a
a
good
good
life. I
subject
really have.
because I get in arguments with people, astrologers, about this all the time. They say to me, "You cannot predict
Amazing.
death." And I'm like, "Oh, yes, I can."
Yes,
And
I can.
just because you can't doesn't mean I can't.
Right.
You know?
I'm
Now, and
hoping
this
I
is
make it. I'm
well,
hoping I make
here's
it.
that's why I
Because
want
I
a
have a
caveat on this though.
7-year-old granddaughter that I'd like to see just a little bit longer, but it's okay. I can watch
But
over from the
this is
other
why I want to
side.
get to the caveat. One thing that I
Yeah.
have learned in that is
Mhm.
that, yes, because I focused a lot on death, obviously, with Dorothy. She taught me a lot about
Mhm.
death to the point where, as an example, I told my husband at the time, I think you need to go spend some time with your father. That's how I
Yeah.
handled it. I'm not going to say, I think your father's dying in a week.
Mhm.
Instead I'm going to say, I think you need to go spend some time with your father. He took him fishing. He dropped dead a couple of days later. So at that point, he's looking at me like, you knew, but yeah. Okay. So in that case, yes. Now, did I say anything? Did I freak somebody out? No, I just said, go spend some time with your father. Now,
Right.
the other side of this is the first time I started catching on to this is my grandmother. And I saw my grandmother's death coming. Thank God my mother was an astrologer because I showed her the chart. I go, are you seeing what I'm seeing? She goes,
Mhm.
yes. And I said, then I'm going to come spend that weekend so that we're around her when this happens.
Right.
So I made an excuse. I came to spend the weekend. 2 o'clock in the morning, I hear a thump. Grandma goes down in the hallway.
Yeah.
We called because I was awake and like prepared for it. We had the
Mhm.
paramedics there in 2 minutes and they brought her back.
Oh,
Now,
wow.
then I'm going, now, wait a minute. She died exactly like we said, thought, but they brought her back. So then I
Mhm.
started getting curious about near-death experiences, and I started tracking down all these NDE people and getting their charts and going, oh my God, they died exactly like the chart said when everything, but they came
Wow.
back. Now, and then the funny thing, why we brought this up is a woman tracked me down about a week ago. She's like, oh, I found you on Facebook. You can find anybody now. She says, you told me I was going to die of an overdose. And she said that year, and she said, I died of an overdose that year. And I'm going, but I'm talking to you. And
Yeah,
they
right.
brought me back. I'm like, oh. But she's like, I just had to tell you you were right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it wasn't
Yeah.
that I remember at that time I was worried about her offing herself with the drug. So of course I'm
Mm.
gonna, you know, but that's where you get into free will because going back to my mother, when I saw my mother's death coming. Now here's how I thought we could change it. Because when you have a solar return every year, it's cast for where you are at that time. Now, if you
Solar
go far
return
enough,
every year.
yeah, you have a solar return every year, somewhere around your birthday.
Oh,
It's
oh,
not
oh,
always the
oh,
same
oh, yes,
day, but
yes, yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
you get
Solar
a solar
return.
return. Now,
Oh,
that
yes,
solar
yes.
return is greatly affected according to where you are.
Right.
So, I thought if I could get her back east for her birthday, she would have a different solar return. And I told her that. I'm like, look, if we get you
Mhm.
back east, it's going to suck. Another example, what I mean by this, I saw paralysis coming in my chart one time.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, I got to get out of here. I don't want to wind up in a wheelchair. Oh my God, what am I going to do? So
Right.
that's one of the reasons I went to visit Dorothy is I figured, okay, if I get far enough back east, I'll change the, you know, the degree, this, the house, etc. And the ironic thing is when I landed, literally when I landed in Nutley, New Jersey, my face blew up like a balloon and I had Bell's palsy.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So